to episode 24 of Talent Hub TV. We're here with Robert Whitaker today. Thanks for joining us, Rob.
Thank you, Ben.
You've been involved in a huge Salesforce transformation. I'm really keen to kind of talk all through that and what you've learned along the way, and really excited to hear more about it. But I guess for the benefit of viewers and listeners, tell us a bit about your career before Salesforce and kind of where you started out.
Yeah, so as you sort of mentioned, last 3 years I've really been sort of running for both from a strategy and execution, the second largest sort of Salesforce implementation in our region. But before that, I've done a range of sort of, I call them transformation initiatives across, whether it be putting a customer master data management systems in, core registry system consolidations within financial services, data analytics environments, digital environments, led strategy and architecture team. So a broad range of large transformation initiatives, all in that sort of digital transformation type lens.
Sure. Okay. Cool.
Across that time.
So before moving into the most recent piece, which was the Salesforce transformation, what was your last role?
So looking after the strategy and architecture team within my current organisation, which basically meant leading a team of about 30 solution architects across basically they were across all initiatives within the organisation.
Okay, cool.
Financial services, as well as really driving the technology strategy for the organisation.
Sure. So then how did you fall into that Salesforce piece when your current organisation looked to implement a platform?
Well, it was just really an ask of the CIO at the time to sort of understand and explore what else could we be doing, how could we be doing things differently at the organisation, what opportunities are there in technology. And it just happened at the time we were sort of looking at what do we do with Siebel as a system.
Mm-hmm.
It was coming up for another big upgrade, and then it sort of came, well, Salesforce's potential opportunity here, and it just happened Dreamforce was that month.
Oh, really?
I was sent off to Dreamforce. Didn't know what it was when we went off to Dreamforce. And really, once I understood the ecosystem, I really realized it was a lot more than just a CRM, and then the potential for that. And I came back from that and really then led the creation of the business case and then how we drove forward from there. It was actually quite a very quick journey.
So having worked with Siebel for a number of years, then going to Dreamforce and seeing Salesforce, I guess that was a real eye-opener.
Oh, Dreamforce is, it's an eye-opener. Everyone kept saying, oh, this is massive, and you'd be blown away, and you sort of get a bit skeptical. And then when you get there, it's like, oh no, this is massive.
Yeah, they weren't lying.
Yeah, they absolutely weren't lying. They undersold it, if anything. But also just the broader ecosystem. You're sort of going there thinking it's a CRM, and then you're going, well, hang on, but it can do workflow, it can do marketing, it can do this, it can do this, and then you realise, gee, there's a lot more possibilities here than just what the traditional people think Siebel could do.
Sure. So what, when you looked at the platforms, you were moving away from Siebel, or you were going to have to upgrade, what else did you look at, and why was, obviously it's a broad platform, but why was Salesforce the obvious one?
So it really came on the table. It was references to the world's #1 CRM. So it was a bit of a, let's investigate that. The real value proposition was that it was more than a CRM. So yes, we looked at Siebel, but then when we started looking, well, that business case, probably stacks up, but how can you make that business case stronger? And it's like, well, hang on, we can do these other capabilities. So what other capabilities in the organisation do we have? What else can we consolidate on? How can we effectively create a single customer engagement platform for the organisation?
And externally, outside of Siebel and Salesforce, anything else that you kind of chucked into the mix?
Well, there was well over 40 systems that were sort of considered in that mix, from payment systems to workflow systems, basically third-party sort of portals and what they did. Some of the sort of internal process, managing internal processes, some of those systems as well sort of came into that mix of things to look forward and simplify. Pretty much when you think through an organisation architecture, if you think anything that's customer facing, whether it's B2B or B2C, effectively came into scope in some way or another of a potential to be leveraged by Salesforce.
Sure. So for someone that hadn't worked with Salesforce before and then coming into an environment where you were delivering or you were key behind the delivery of the second biggest Salesforce transformation in APAC, what how did you kind of approach it? What did you learn, and what were the challenges?
Well, it's quite interesting. The account executive asked me on the very first time I met him, what do I know about Salesforce? And I said between 1 to 10. And I said 1. And to be honest, I'd actually only Googled Salesforce on the way down to the country. I didn't have any idea across the knowledge there. And it was a really big learning experience.
Sure.
If you go back 3 years, where the ecosystem was and where it is, like compared to now, like there's a lot of things we had to learn into. How do you set up a program of this scale? How do you mobilize the various teams? What are all the features and capabilities? What's moving? Like we were still back in the days of talking about Classic then, and Lightning's coming. So what do you do on Lightning? Do you wait?
Sure.
All of those sort of things you had to sort of learn. We didn't even have a Sydney presence in AWS at the time. Everything was still North American hosted.
Sure.
So I had to lean in and learn, basically push that agenda as well. For the community.
Sure. So what have been over the last 3 years, starting the program and getting it delivered? What's been the biggest challenge or biggest challenges?
Well, you could write a book on this. This could be a whole series on its own. There's a range of things learned a lot along the way. I sort of go, you've got to have a really strong vision. It's got to be compelling. It's got to be the masses have got to buy into it, and it's got to be exciting to get people excited about what the possibility is and opening up people's minds to that possibility.
Sure.
You've got to have strong executive sponsorship, and often executive sponsorship is seen as, well, they're there to sort of come to a steering committee. I'm saying they've got to be day to day. It just can't be dropping into a meeting once a month. They've got to be hands on, there to solve the challenges along the way. I sort of go the first 90 days of your implementation is actually the most critical, because it's where everything you're setting everything up, whether it be your team structures, finding the right talent, what you design you're going to have, what are the components you're going to use, how you're going to use them. You're going to make a lot of all your key decisions in that first 90 days, and even if you spend a little bit more time in that period will get you set up for success so much more when you go forward.
It's the foundations, right? You can't go back and reset them.
You can't go back and whatever you don't do in that 90 days, after that period, you'll be regretting, I should have done that back then. I should have done that back then. One of the biggest lessons is the prototyping and proof of concepts. I always go, Salesforce is really quick and easy just to mock something up, and building a demo or a prototype to show a stakeholder is way more powerful than a set of PowerPoint packs or requirement documents. Not only do you get the stakeholder more engaged and you're bringing the whole solution to life, but you're actually finding out, does this actually work? They'll tell you, well, I don't like that, and it's stuff that you can't really see when you're reviewing a PowerPoint pack. But when someone sees it on the screen, it's like, okay, there, and at the end of the day, you've probably wasted, I don't know, a couple of days on building that demo, but you've actually saved yourself weeks of going backwards and forwards with business. So that's very, very powerful skill along the way. Change management, rollout, and the sort of the culture, it's often forgotten. Everyone told me when I started the journey, change management, you're going to have to spend a lot of money and you're going to spend a lot of time on that. I can confirm you've got to spend a lot of time on that. It's often quite forgotten in there. And it's more than just how do you get users to use and adopt the system. Often it's pushing cultural boundaries within the organization, because the whole moving from clicks not code, it's often more agile ways of working. You've got to think, how do you actually help the organization change the culture within there and the processes. So it's twofold in that capability there. So there's a sort of a range of aspects there. There's a whole lot you can.
I bet we could be here all day talking about it for sure.
On all of these type of capabilities.
I bet, and you used a big global Salesforce partner, and I guess it kind of aligns to the last question, because when you started the program, you didn't know what you didn't know. So the value of having a partner that has done big piece of work before must be great. But what, aside from just the delivery aspect, do you get from working with a big partner?
So obviously it helped educate us as a team, and brought that knowledge into the organisation. So you got that real kickstart. The other big part we needed from the partner was the scale. If I came to you and said, "Can we have 80 developers
I'd have
tomorrow?"
loved it, but yeah,
You'd probably freak out.
yeah, yeah,
I'm trying to find that in this market.
yeah, for sure.
But they can just sort of bring that scale.
Yeah,
And also it's not a long game. You don't need that scale for enduring. You need it for short spikes.
Yeah.
And that's what the partner really brings. They bring that expertise, particularly when you start looking at roles like, say, CTA. To be honest, it's pretty much hard to recruit a CTA as a permanent into your organisation.
Oh, for sure.
But a partner brings those type of roles, which are really, really hard to recruit for. You need them for particular moments in your journey.
Yeah.
And you sort of can get them and then continue forward.
So that talking about specific roles, that leads me on to the next question. What would you say? And I guess it depends on what you're implementing, but like the key pillars of a transformation of this size, what would you pinpoint to have been the key Salesforce roles that you had involved?
So I sort of go, you need a strong architect, just to get that foundational design right, and really just to bring the decisions to play. They've got to have really strong knowledge of both the platform, be up to date with what the latest is in the environment. From that perspective, the product owner in the business is so fundamental, because it's, they're the ones that do the scope, the prioritization. They're the ones giving the developer and the admin the guidance. And developer and admin are only as good as the inputs they've received. And it's really hard to find that type of person. It needs to have someone that's both empowered as a business and has that cut through and prepared to make decision making. And it doesn't have to be a senior person; it can be junior, but just as long as it's got those two core attributes across the board. And you then just got to have an engaged and excited team. Like, people have got to want to be there, and they've got to believe in what you're trying to do to achieve those outcomes. And they've got to be passionate about continuing to learn. This platform is moving very rapidly, forever changing. You always get frustrations with, you find people, it's like, oh yeah, I know X. It's like, well, but X was like 6 releases ago. What about
keeping up to speed?
You've got to keep up to speed, whether that be through Trailhead or paying attention to conferences. It's one of my, I always ask in interviews, what's in the what did you find exciting in the latest release? Because that sort of gives to me a knowledge of, have you even read the release notes? There, do you? Surely you must have picked something up if you paid attention to those things. What conferences have you been to along the way?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good question around the releases, because it will either catch people out or it will show
they're up to date and those dimensions.
So collaboration across the Salesforce ecosystem is pretty massive. I know that you've been and spoken to a lot of different companies before your journey started, or along the journey and after. What kind of value have you got from collaborating with businesses outside of your existing to see how they've done things and what you can learn from them?
That's one of the most exciting parts I find about the ecosystem. And one of the things that stood out to me first, that very first Dreamforce I went to, I went in with we'll just do a bunch of sessions and learn stuff. After about a couple of hours, like, well, no, the networking's more important. Watch the sessions on YouTube. And really just learn, like, meeting people, meeting companies. And I've done that through those conferences. I've sit on a number of advisory boards for Salesforce and other type of events. The part that I always get out of every one of them, it's an opportunity to get ideas. Like, the number of times I've walked away from a conversation of hearing what someone else has done and going, oh, we could do something similar to that, or we've got a similar problem, we could do something similar. And I just find it's just a source of innovation ideas. And especially when you start talking even outside our region to some of the other markets, particularly North America, they're typically a little bit ahead of us. And it's a great source of ideas, and you come back and do that. The other thing is, it just gives you comfort, and everyone's in the same same position,
same challenges.
And sometimes you walk away and it's like, damn it, we're either ahead of them or there's the same problem. They don't have the answers. Along the way.
But that's what I find. I mean, often a lot of the answers are out there, and it's just by reaching out and having those conversations, and it saves you so much time and pain over the...
and everyone's quite so willing to, with their time to, once you sort of build up your network in the ecosystem, you can always just pop a question to someone, and everyone's really sharing
Yeah,
of how they're sort of going or doing, or how have they solved this problem.
sure.
And I think it's important that when people sort of join the ecosystem, they're always got that giving. That's that giving back to the
Yeah,
knowledge. You absorb a lot when you join. Everyone's helping you pick
sure.
everything up, and I see one of my responsibilities to give back some of this knowledge that I've built up
Hence
from
why
all
you're
the
here.
people that have shared it with me.
Yeah, for sure. So day one of the journey, you said you'd rate your knowledge of the platform as 1 out of 10.
Yeah,
It's been a long 3 years, I
yeah.
guess. You've really embedded yourself in the ecosystem. Where would you put yourself now?
I'd be definitely up at that 8 or 9. I've implemented all the clouds there are,
Yeah,
minus Tableau, Salesforce new acquisition.
sure.
From that front, and know the depth of the platform from I know is I always go to the team like, get to Apex code. I don't worry about that, but I know most
Everything
things,
above, yeah.
most things above that.
Sure.
From that, and just the delivery side, the ways of working at scale, large transformation, know all those
So
pieces.
going deep into the platform, how important is that for someone? If someone is watching this and they're about to start a big transformation, they're sitting in the role that you've played, how important is it to go deep?
It's definitely beneficial. I go there's no matter what level you are, there's always opportunities to learn and understand the platform. And more you spend time understanding the platform, more you're going to get out of it, more value you're going to drive to it. I've been a big push on Trailhead, both within the organisation. I personally have done over 200 badges. And I go, there's no level in the organisation that.
Where do you find time? Where do you find time to do 200 badges?
But it's a source of ideas.
Yeah, it's true.
When something new comes up, do the Trailhead
Yeah.
there. But I just go, whatever level, that's just a source of learning and
Sure.
development. I encourage people to do that, and more you put into it, more you get out of it, and more value you'll be able to put back into the ecosystem, more valuable you will be to your employers.
Yeah, and I guess if you're leading the implementation, the transformation, and you're investing that time into doing Trailhead and being up to date and up to speed, then there's no excuse for anyone else.
There's no excuse for anyone else underneath.
Yeah, for sure.
I even got the head of our contact center. He has about 800 people under him. He did 25 badges.
No way.
Just to encourage people to learn. Frontline staff, I got to do badges. They now come up with ideas of how they use the platform.
Yeah, sure.
So it's quite a powerful tool to get people both engaged and really come out with ideas and innovating on the platform.
Yeah, and there's nothing like it anywhere else. It's free.
No, it's free. It's free. It's like there's no excuse whatsoever to do it. It's got a little bit of fun along the way.
Yeah, definitely. So what are you excited about now? What does the future look like for you?
Oh, really now just at the stage of now exploring what the next transformation will be.
Sure.
Within the ecosystem, take a bit of time to relax and look for that next opportunity, whether it be a partner, whether it be helping another business drive a transformation.
Sure. You've got all
see.
of the war wounds, so you know what to expect.
Know what to expect and know how to deliver it. And we'll see where it turns out.
Sure.
In a few months.
Perfect. So, and if anyone wants to connect with you or hear more about the story, where's the best place to connect?
Just connect via LinkedIn. I'm always happy to share my experiences, my knowledge. Always happy to help people out, whether it be businesses, partners. Always happy to share my knowledge, and you can see that through the various presentations and conferences.
Sure.
I continue to support.
Cool. Well, look, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure people will get a lot of value from that. So thank you, and all the best for the future.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.